Now then lads, and welcome back. Today, I thought I'd have a bit of a discussion and talk about the latest balance changes that came about last week. Primarily, those balance changes that came to the Type 100 early for Japan. So yeah, let's cut the intro and let's get straight into it. Okay, so what actually were these balance changes? And what the hell happened? Well, basically, last week we had one of those making Enlisted a better place things, and a bunch of Japanese guns got some minor buffs, mainly in two areas around damage and fire rate, but someone probably didn't think about this too well at Darkflow, as well, let's just say they've made some weapons incredibly good. Most notably the Type 100 Early, a BR1 SMG that has now been buffed to make it essentially a BR3 SMG, making the BR2 SMGs pointless, which is probably not good. They've done it so bad that now it's really good now. So I used it, and yeah, this thing is absolutely insane. But to see why these changes are so broken, I'm going to break it down into the core problems that I see it as, and why these are specifically problems, because I feel it's important to talk about, because this gun is kind of really good. Okay, so I'm going to split this section into two. One's going to focus on the performance, and one's going to focus on the economics. And we'll start with performance. So, you see, the Type 100 Early only received two stat changes. The weight went up from 3.8 to 4.2 kilograms, and its rate of fire increased from 450 to 700. This change effectively makes the Type 100 Early just much better than any BR2 offerings, and much better than its BR1 USA equivalent, the M3 Grease gun. It outclasses both the MP28 and the Type 2A by default in both damage and fire rate, which is kind of unheard of for a BR1 gun. Also, it's just pretty good in general. Like, this thing is effective. It's good at long range, good at short range. There's really not many problems with it, which I think is one of the biggest issues with it, because it's such a jack of all trades as a gun that it outclasses the other BR2 Japanese SMGs. And yeah, it's quite literally the best SMG you could get from a stats perspective on a purely default unupgraded gun, until you get the Type 100 Lite, which outranks it. But yeah, this means that a BR1 gun is so effective, it's the best choice for BR1, BR2, and arguably BR3 till you get the Type 100 Lite, which is kind of insane to think about, because I can't think of any gun, especially an assault weapon, that would last that long. But yeah, I think this is sort of indicative of the problem that has been made, and the problem that now is sort of coming to light. But to really understand that, before we continue on the performance, I just want to take the quick detour to look at why this gun isn't very good from an economic perspective. Okay, so Enlisted economics, I know, a very thrilling and exciting topic when talking about a World War II shooter. They're kind of important for looking at why I think this gun is so powerful. So, let me explain. This gun is a beast when it is fully upgraded. Its fire rate goes from 700 to 810, and its peak damage tops off at 7.2, which is more than any other SMG up until the Type 100 Lite, which makes sense. And the only gun that fully upgraded that can somewhat rival it is the BR2 Type 2A, which gets a higher fire rate, but, you know, when you compare this to a fully upgraded Type 100 Early, I mean, the answer's obvious. You're going to pick the Type 100. It does more damage, and only has slightly slower. I mean, it's only got 50 rounds, you know, it fires 50 rounds slower, which is like, no, that's not a problem. People are willing to sacrifice that if it means they can have that much more damage. So, that's a problem. But another problem is how cheap it is to fully upgrade. Alright, so I want to paint you a bit of a situation here that may be familiar to some of you. You're a new player to Enlisted, and you've just started playing Japan. and you have just unlocked the Type 100. You've been using the medics quite a bit, so you're fairly ready to, you've put a lot of squad points in, and you've upgraded the Type 100 already. So now you can buy it. And you've also got the cheap upgrades as well, which is an even bigger benefit. So now, what you have to do is you go and you buy a new Type 100. And that costs 125 silver to buy it. And then you decide you might as well upgrade it, so you upgrade it to level 1 for 36 silver. Then you upgrade it to level 2 for 103 silver. Then you go to level 3 for only 205 silver. I mean, that's only slightly more expensive than when you bought the gun. And assuming that you have all those defaults, which in this situation you do, and you have all those discounts, which is all great, that means for a total of 469 silver, you get a gun with a rate of fire of 810 and a damage of 7.2. That is less than 500 silver, which is the minimum amount that you can get from, like, loot crates and such. That is insane. That's, like, unheard of. Like, okay. To put this into perspective, to buy a BR2 SMG, which is the Type 2A or the MP28, that's 300 silver. And to buy the SIG 1920 or the Type 100 late, that costs 750 silver. So to buy a Type 100 late altogether, it's more expensive than just upgrading a Type 100 early. That is insane. And that's just the default. That's just buying the guns. That's not factoring in upgrades as well. So, in other words, for very little money, you can basically get a gun that is on par with BR3 at BR1. Now, this has definite upsides and downsides that I will get into later, but just keep in mind how cheap this gun is, because this gun isn't just good at BR1, 2, and 3. This gun can arguably rival some BR5 guns. Okay, so I took this gun into a BR5 lobby, mainly just to see how well it would hold up. And honest to God, when I was contrasting it mainly with the Tokyo Arsenal SMG and a little bit with the M2 Sawn-Off, it was arguably better than the Sawn-Off and only slightly worse than the Tokyo, which is... that hurts my head. This is a BR1 submachine gun that is not only better than the BR5 offering, but arguably only slightly worse than the BR4 offering. That will probably mostly come down to do you like recoil, which is insane. Like, okay, just to give another example, that's the equivalent of taking a fully upgraded M3 grease gun into a BR5 match instead of the 50-round Thompson. Except, this example with the Type 100 early works incredibly well, and is also incredibly cheap. This is 469 silver to basically dominate BR5 matches, which is insane. Like, it's not as good, it's not brilliant, but it is incredibly good still. Like, it shouldn't work. Like, that's just... I can't fathom it, man. I can't fathom it. But honest to God, this is a really funny change. But it's also effective, I mean, there's a lot of benefits with this, but yeah. Overall then, this is a BR5 killer. That's incredible. This submachine gun is BR1. I know I've repeated that like 4 times now, but like I feel it needs bare repeating. This is a BR1 submachine gun. Yet it can hold, and it doesn't just hold its weight in BR5, it swings its weight, and it beats its weight. It punches way above its weight class. And it shouldn't, but it does. But yeah, so ain't that fun? Okay, so we've had a bit of a talk about what the changes were and the impact. I think it's now time to talk about the pros and cons about this. So, let's start with the economic issues. Firstly, let's look at the pros. This is a really friendly change for free-to-plays, like, hugely. Like, from a free-to-plays perspective, I imagine this is probably going to quickly become, like, one of their favourite guns, because it's really good, and it's also really cheap. Like, you can actually upgrade these guns pretty easily, pretty early on, and I imagine a lot of them would like that, especially in the fact that it lasts longer as well. You know, it's a much better investment. You're going to get quite a lot out of those 469 silver you spend on it, which is obviously a huge benefit. So that's a really good thing, and I actually think that's good. I do believe that the economic side of it for free-to-plays, it's really good. But there are problems with it. I mean, the big problem I have with it is because the economic incentives are really strong, it does kind of discourage the use of the BR2 weapons, and hell, I'd even argue it discourages the use of the SIG 1920. Because, you know, why spend so much money to buy these guns and upgrade them when I could fully upgrade this gun for less than it costs to buy some of these? Hell, I think this could even discourage people from using the Type 100 late because, you know, it costs, you know, way cheaper, like nearly half as much to get a gun that is basically just the Type 100 late but a bit worse, that still does the same amount of damage, and the only reason it's arguably worse is the fire rate, which is something that I can see a lot of people doing, especially further on if these changes stay, which is a bit upsetting because it's kind of sad, because, like, the only gun that this doesn't really replace is the Arsenal SMG, the Tokyo Arsenal, because that gun is already a monster anyway. So I don't think it'll replace that, and yeah, I was probably a bit hyperbolic with the BR5 stuff, but it's still insane that it puts up that well in that, you know, style, in the whole automatic fuckfest that is BR5. Now, another pro about it that I actually do like about it is this is a pretty iconic gun at a low tier, which has a big beneficial advantage. You can use it for LARPing and use it a lot further on in the game, which I actually like. I think that's cool because it's, you know, the Type 100, it's a well-known Japanese gun, and it's very early on, and you can use it for a way long time. I do like that. I like the fact that it keeps it in the game for a lot longer and is more relevant. And I can imagine a lot of people who run historically accurate loadouts probably like this. They're probably some of the more happy people about the changes, because it's cool. I mean, I agree with them. I like it. I think these changes, in terms of historical accuracy, are pretty good. But, as the con, obviously, it is too powerful for BR1. I'm sorry, it does feel too powerful. I think, like, it would be a bit better at BR2, but man, that's kind of hard to say. I don't know. I've only experienced being killed by it a couple of times since. I've not seen it too often. But then again, I've not played a lot of the US recently, so I'm not entirely sure. But if you have, let me know in the comments if you find fighting the Type 100 early to be fun. But I don't know, it to me at least, I think it will feel a bit like bullshit how easy it is for them to kill you, which is a bit annoying. But I think overall, I do like the gun, and I do side more of the pros than the cons. I mean, it's nice to have a gun that's friendly to free-to-plays, to be honest. But I honestly can't really think of any ways to fix this gun. I mean, there's only 3 ways I can think to fix it. One of them is to just revert the gun back, which will just make it crap again. Up it to BR2 or 3, but that ruins the LARPing and the historical accuracy stuff. Or, which I think is the best outcome, is to just do nothing, which I think is the most likely. I don't think Darkflow are going to make any changes to this for a while, and I hope they don't. I do hope they don't. I don't really want them to. I think this gun is much more fun in its current state than it has been in a while. So yeah, no, fingers crossed, but, you know, it'll be whatever it be's, even though I think right now the Type 100 early's in its best situation it's ever been in. But we'll see. Okay, and I think that pretty much ends this video. I think overall, I'm happy with these changes. I think they're funny, it's a very powerful gun now, but, you know, it is what it is. Good job, Type 100 early. You're finally usable, even though you've sacrificed several of your older brothers to the, to the flames. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching this, rant thing, and, goodbye.